Hello, BookTube. It's Saturday morning. It's a bit gloomy out. I thought I'd make a video. I first want to thank Mark Richardson at Richardson Reads and Jason Harrigan at Byways in Bookland for their shout-outs. And they were both instrumental in getting me to start this channel. They prompted me after leaving notes or comments on their videos and posting pictures on Instagram and Twitter. But I also want to thank everybody else who have subscribed and made wonderful comments. Thank you very much. And as I said at the beginning in my introductory video, that I didn't know whether I could bring anything unique to this. I don't know how unique it is, but I am glad that the videos that I have made so far have struck a chord with several people, and they enjoy it. One type seems to be paramount is the books about books. I think most people that are collectors and readers enjoy books about books, and I do have two bookcases here with books about books. So today I thought I would show you three books that I have here, and then describe a little story from one of the articles that is in one of the volumes. And this might become a bit of a feature, books about books. I might highlight a specific book or a few books or a subject. I don't know what structure my channel is going to take yet, mainly because at the moment I'm on annual leave and I won't be back to work until Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the 29th. So I've had a lot of time to sort of make some videos, and I've made quite a few so far. And that will lessen once I go back to work, but I hope to make several a week anyway, 2-3 a week. And Saturday might be a good time to do a books about books video. This year in 2020, I now have the majority of weekends off. I used to work every weekend, but now I think I have to work every third Saturday, and every sixth weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I have to work. So for the most part, I have the weekends free now. So we'll see how it goes. But for the moment, I have three books here that I want to discuss. They are all selections from a magazine called the Gentleman's Magazine. And it's called the Gentleman's Magazine Library. And the Gentleman's Magazine started in 1731, and it went for almost 200 years to 1922. Now, my local bookshop over the last couple of years were lucky enough to get in probably an uninterrupted run of 150 years or more of the magazine. I was cash-strapped at the time that it came in. I could not even contemplate getting it. So it's now been dispersed. So it was a lost opportunity. And I'm sure, like most book collectors, we're like fishermen. We all have stories of the one or the ones that got away. But occasionally we do land something, and that is always nice. As I think a comedian once said, you can't have everything, because where would you put it? But back to these books. As I said, they are a selection, topical selection from articles, and it's saying being a classified collection of the chief contents of the Gentleman's Magazine from 1731 to 1838. I think this says 1838. It's edited by George Lawrence Gome. This one isn't particularly books about books, but there is a crossover. It's dialect, proverbs, and word lore. Now, it's got, the sections are lists of local words and specimens of dialect. So they've got provincial glossaries, North Country dialect, Northumberland dialect, provincial words from Newcastle, letters in a dialect of the Shetland Islands, glossary to the Zetland dialect, Anglo-Saxon words preserved in Devonshire. So yeah, it's going to be mostly dealing with English subjects, because it was a British publication. Other section includes proverbs, Greek proverbs for absurd actions, which sounds interesting. English proverbs explained, just specific proverbs. And then, proverbial phrases goes into a number of phrases. Some of these I've never heard of. Plowing with dogs. Sixes and sevens. I've heard spick and span. Thief in a candle, and it just goes on. And then there's special words like beauty, bum fiddle, cockney, cockloft, country dance, curries, and it just goes on for the whole page, specific words. Some of the articles are short, a paragraph or two. Others go on for pages. Depends on the subject. Now we've got a small section of names of persons and places. The last section is one that I've found very interesting, is signs of inns, etc. So it's got old signposts, signs of inns, remarks on the devices of tradesmen's shops, on ancient house signs and old signs in Norwich. Now, that was published in, this one here was published in 1886. It's a cream-colored buckram that could use a little cleaning, and I do need to get some cleaning supplies. There's a little bag of material that you can rub on, and it cleans. It sort of lifts the dirt off, and I've had that in the past, and it worked quite well. I think Jason mentioned it on Byways in Bookland. I just have to find a supplier here in the UK for that. Now, the next one definitely is Books About Books. It's a little different binding. It's a dark brown binding. It's the same setup. It's the Gentleman's Magazine Library, bibliographical notes, and it's edited as well by George Lawrence Gome, and this is 1889. They're all published by Elliot Stock, 62 Paternoster Row in London. And as it says, bibliographical notes, and its subject matter goes from notes on special books, so they go through specific ones, yearbooks, the Decameron, they've got a section on Caxton, Andrew Board's Brevity of Health, and just, specific books all the way through, and 2 Curiosity Old Books. Subject areas, they got almanacs, and the big part of that is about almanacs, early English newspapers, newspapers in 1831, periodical journals of 1832, circulation of the London journals in 1835, geographical and political cards, historical cards, origin of whist, gardener's calendars, books on horticulture and botany, treatises on laughter, fragments of literature, the tailors measured by the poets. It's just as I say, it's a culling of articles. Now, the third one here is the one that I do want to spend a little more time with, but it is Literary Curiosity and Notes. Again, edited by George Lawrence Gome, but this one, that's the main library, the Gentleman's Magazine Library, but this specific one is edited by, there's only initials, ABG. Again, it's Elliot Stock, London, but this is 1888. Now, just a brief backing up a little bit with regards to this series. It's I don't know how many there are in the series of this gentleman's library of these collections. I do know there's about 15 or 20 that I've seen. They're all topical. There are topographical ones that are specific to areas or even counties. I think there's a 3 or 4 volume on London, which I'm hoping to get eventually, and just other areas throughout the UK. There are architectural ones on Gothic, I believe, Romanesque, just various ones, and some of them are multiple volumes. So, but they're not numbered. So I have yet to determine how many there are in total. I suspect there's probably about 30 or more, but that's only a guess. Now back to this one. It's split into sections: book making and book sellings, paper making in Japan, account of first paper making from linen, on the bad composition of paper, the early use of paper in England, ink, anecdotes of early printing, a note on the history of printing, and it just goes through book sales, publisher of book catalogs with marked prices, libraries and book clubs, and it talks specifically about a few libraries, specific libraries, public libraries, as well as fee libraries, subscription libraries, and personal libraries, private libraries. And those are quite interesting, and as I say, I dip into this occasionally. I have not read it from cover to cover. And then there's Bibles, prayer books, and devotional books. As you'd expect there, Salisbury Missal, description of Golden Manual of Prayers, prayers and prayer books of Queen Elizabeth, prayer book of Sigmund I of Poland, so not always English orientated, and priest manual for Edward the Fourth. Now, the one article that I found very, very interesting here goes for about 2 pages. I won't read it all, but I'll jump through and read a few highlights that are quite amusing. It's called The Bookworm. It was first published in 1819 in the Gentleman's Magazine, and he starts out with a quote from Dibdin's bibliographic on the Decameron. Dibdin was a self-styled bibliographer. He wrote a fabulous book. Well, he expanded it, but it started out as just a letter about bibliomania, its causes, and its cures, and how it can be bad and good at the same time. I've got a modern reprinting of it, an annotated version of it, which I will go through eventually at some point. But anyway, the quote that he does here is, Happy Giscardo, for thou art among the number of those old blinding seeking bibliomaniacs who, if they chance not to stumble upon any of the forementioned delectable fragments, have yet perhaps the felicity to pounce upon a worm, not of the stupendous dimensions of that of Spindledone Hughes, pronouncing it wrong, I'm sure, but of pearl-like transparency of color, obliquely of movement, and of an insatiable spirit of devouration. And then he's got a little quote here: never ending, still beginning, fighting still, and still destroying. Now, I'll read the first paragraph of this article. It's, ever since I read the curious and interesting account of the bookworm, which follows the above quotation, I have been diligent in my search for one of those far-famed, and it would seem, rarely discovered foes to the animals of the olden time. Many ponderous volumes whose pages presented prima facie evidence of the ravages of those destructive insects have undergone the most scrutinizing investigation, and often, after having followed the scent and traced a prowler through his mazy windings in thick wood and scattered leaves, I have been obliged to give up the pursuit on finding that the woolly elf had left his cover. Nevertheless, fortune frequently smiles upon us when we least expect it, and throws things in our way which we have repeatedly sought in vain. And so it happened to me on Saturday the 7th inst., for I was destined on that day to experience the felicity of being able to apply to myself the admirable exclamation which I have adopted as the motto of this communication. But where does the gentle reader suppose that I found this mortal enemy of bibliomaniacs? The Roxburgh will probably guess that he is feasting on a morsel of Caxton or other black-letter delicacy. Not so, good sir, and I am mightily glad thereof. The grave and learned clerk may conjecture that he had crossed the seas from Holland, Germany, or France, and was regaling on the solid repast which the many tomes of Leusden, Bochart, and Hoffman, and Stevens so amply afford, or perhaps was minutely investigating the subtle necessities and picking holes in the tedious sophistry of the German critics. And he goes on from there, but he goes, you may conceive the triumph with which I captured this literary foe, and can participate the joy which filled my heart when I cautiously enclosed him, not in a deal, but in a beechen box, where he was quickly provided with a dinner consisting of a few choicely culled and well-wormed scraps. He seemed satisfied with his situation, and on the next morning, as I was looking over the rest of my tattered volumes for the purpose of supplying the little creature with a change for his Sunday meal, I chanced to meet with a small Greek book, which bore self-evident testimony of the labors of some of those belligerents, who had not only penetrated through the philosophy of Pythagoras, but had even ventured to take off the powerful arguments of Demosthenes. Directed by this index, I traced their insinuations ad fiem, and there, to my great gratification, I discovered not only another live worm, but also a dead fly or moth, which probably was his parent. My other books were afterwards examined over and over again, and he didn't find anything more. He put these two together to see if they seem to be friendly. One he surmises is older than the other, and he just goes on and says that he will follow their progress, continue to feed them, and he shall be most happily to gratify the curiosity of the bibliographer or naturalist by an inspection of them. So anytime he's saying they can come and take a look at him, and he'll just continually update us on this. And then there's other bits and pieces about Bookworm, but this one I found was most fascinating. It's signed John Smith, whether it's a real name or not, of St. John's College, Cambridge. Now, there are no other entries in here of John Smith regarding his two bookworms, which would have been fascinating if every issue he would have just written a little paragraph or two, a little letter of the updates on his little worms. But sadly, they're not in here, and I don't believe they are in the Gentleman's Magazine, because I can't seem to find anything in indexes that I've seen. And it's just the oddities that are in these collections. With regards to bookworms, I've got it's a very tattered, a very, very tattered It's a common prayer book of the Church of England from 1774, I believe it is. The covers are coming off. It's been well used, but the interesting part is you can see, if I can hold that up at the top, you can see where there's been an insect chewing through. And if I open up further, you can see where it's borne through many, many pages. If you see the hole there. There's nothing in there. There's no insects in this book now. But you can see where he's at times gone all in different directions. Or right there is another one that he started going through the hole and went off in a different direction. But yeah, that's 3 books there with regards to books about books, especially the cullings from the Gentleman's Magazine. And I think I'll leave it there. And if you'd like to hear more of that kind of thing, I probably went on prattling too much reading. I don't know how that will work out, but it's really the only way, other than I couldn't find a link to the to the article, so I thought I'd just read a few highlights from it. But if that works, let me know. If anybody else has some interesting things, or especially little quotations about bookworms or anything like that, I'd love to hear them, because I just found that quite fascinating. Anyway, have a good day, BookTube. I'll probably be back with another video, because I've got a collection of Algernon Charles Swinburne's poetry, which I'd like to go through. Anyway, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.